So how do we factor polynomials? In this video, I will show you 20 examples on all the techniques and various types of questions that you have to know for your algebra class. For the first one, we have 4x squared minus 12x. We can factor out the greatest common factor. For the 4 and 12, we can factor out the 4. And then for the x squared and x to the first power, we can factor out x to a lower power, which is 1. And then we see, just do this. 4x squared divided by 4x. 4 divided by 4, we have 1. X squared divided by x to the first power, we have x to the 1 more power here. And then minus 12 divided by 4 is minus 3. X divided by x is just 1, so that's it. For the second one, we have 10x to the third power times y plus 15x to the second power times y to the third power. For the 10 and then the 5, we can factor out a 5. X to the third power, x squared, we can factor out x to the lower power, the second power here. Y to the first, y to the third, we can factor out y to the first. And then take 10 divided by 5, we get 2. Take x to the third power divided by x to the second power, we have x to the first power. Y divided by y is just 1. 15 divided by 5 is plus 3. X squared divided by x squared, no more. Y to the third power divided by y to the first power, we have y to the second power. Now for this one, notice there's no common factor, and in fact this is the difference of x squared and 5 squared. So we can use the formula difference of two squares. And that is a squared minus b squared. This right here gives us a minus b, and then multiply by a plus b. So for this, we know this is x squared, and then minus 5 squared. So use the formula, we will just get this minus that, so x minus 5, and then times x plus 5. Now for this, 2 and 32, we can factor out a 2. So we are going to start with that. So this right here is 2 times x squared. And then minus 32 right here, divided by 2, we have minus 16. This is again a difference of two squares. So this is 2, and then for this is x. And then 16 is the same as 4 squared. So it's x minus 4, and then times x plus 4. For 4x squared minus 9, be careful with this. We will have to first write this as something squared minus something squared. For the 4, notice that's 2 squared, and then we have the x squared. For the 9, we know that's 3 squared. And then we can use the difference of two squares formula here. We get 2x minus 3 times 2x plus 3. Number 6, x squared plus 64. This is the sum of two squares. In fact, whenever we have a squared plus b squared, this right here is not factorable. So the answer for this is just not factorable. However, if you have a sum of two cubes, this right here is actually factorable. First, notice this right here is x to the third power plus 64 is the same as 4 to the third power. This is factorable, and we use the formula right here. A to the third power plus b to the third power. This right here equals a plus b times a squared minus this times that, so here we have ab, and lastly we add b squared. So in fact for this one, we can proceed because again we have the third power. So we will first get x plus 4 because that's a plus b. And then we will have a squared, which is x, and we square that. And then minus ab, so this times that, which is just 4x. Just write down the 4 first. Lastly, we have to add b squared. b is 4 and we square that, so we will have to add 16. This right here is because 4 squared. Next, x to the third power minus 125. This right here is the difference of 2 cubes. X to the third power minus 5 to the third power. We have a similar formula just like this, but be careful with the sign. How I like to remember this is plus plus minus. And then when we have a minus, it's minus minus plus. And the last term is always plus. So for this, we will first have x minus 5. Then multiply by a squared, which is x squared. And then plus ab, let's write down the 5 first. And lastly, we add b squared, which is 5 squared, and that's 25. This is 5 squared. Done. Next, 8x to the third power minus 27. This is a difference of 2 cubes. Be careful. We first write this as something to the third power minus something else to the third power. 8, for the inside, we put down 2, because 2 to the third power is 8. And then we also have to have the x. For the 27, we need a 3. So this right here is our a, this right here is our b. So factor this, we will get 2x minus 3. And then we will have to do a squared. This squared, 2 squared, we get 4, and then also the x squared. So again, this is 2x and then squared. Then we are going to add this times that. 2x times 3, we get 6x. And this is 2x times 3. Lastly, we always add the last one, right? So we add 3 and we square that. So 3 squared, we get 9. So this right here is 3 squared. And that's it. Number 10, 27x to a third power plus 64. This will be a sum of 2 cubes. So set this up, fill in the parentheses. 3 to the third power will be 27, so we need a 3. And then we also need an x. And then 4 to the third power will be 64, so we need a 4. And we will use this formula here, so we will first have 3x plus 4, and then multiply by a squared, which is 3 squared, which is 9, and then x squared right here. So this is 3x squared. And then we have to subtract minus ab. 3x times 4 is 12x. This is 3x times 4. Lastly, plus b squared. 4 squared is 16. Done. Now we are going to factor a trinomial, x squared plus 8x plus 12. Notice this is just a 1x squared. In that case, just go ahead, write down 2 sets of parentheses, and then we need x times x to get the x squared. And then look at the 12, and our goal is to think about 2 numbers that they multiply to be 12, and when we add them, we get 8. So let's try. If we do 3 times 4, that is 12. But when we add them, that is 7. That's not 8. But if we try 2 and 6, 2 times 6 is 12, and when we add them, we do end up with 8. Both of them being positive, so here we need plus 2 and then plus 6. Another one, x squared minus 6x minus 40. Because this is just x squared, so we just have to do this, x and x. And then write down negative 40, and think about 2 numbers that they multiply to be negative 40. Let's say if we get negative 5 and 8. But when we combine them, what do we get? This is positive 3. No, because we are trying to get negative 6. And if you try negative 10 and 4, they multiply to be negative 40, and when we add them, we do end up with negative 6. So we need x minus 10 and x plus 4, just like this. Number 13, x squared minus 10x plus 25. So we need x, and then for the 25, well, let's try 5 and 5. But when we add them, we get positive 10. We are trying to get negative 10. So in fact, negative 5 times negative 5 will also give us positive 25. This is what we need though, because when we add them, we get negative 10. So we have x minus 5 times x minus 5. Notice how they are the same, so we can write this as x minus 5 squared. For this one, we have 2x squared plus 2x minus 12. We can factor out a 2 first. So let's go ahead and do that. 2x squared divided by 2, we get x squared. 2x divided by 2, we get plus x. Minus 12 divided by 2, we get minus 6. Now for this, we are going to factor it. The 2 right here stays, and then we will get x and x to get the x squared. Now let's put down negative 6 here, and then look for two numbers that they multiply to be negative 6, and together we need to get plus 1. So I think 3 and negative 2 works, right? When you add them, we do get positive 1. So let's write down x plus 3, x minus 2, and then we're done. Number 15, 3x squared minus x minus 4. Notice this is no longer a 1, and we cannot factor out any common factor. So in this case, try this. Take this number times the last number. 3 times negative 4, we get negative 12. And then do exactly what we did earlier. Think about two numbers, they multiply to be negative 12. Together, they add up to be negative 1. And the correct combination will be negative 4 and 3. When we add them, we do end up with negative 1. So what will happen is we keep this 3x squared, and then for the minus x, we are going to rewrite that as negative 4 with the x plus 3 with the x. Together, we still get negative x. And then lastly, we have that minus 4. The reason to do this is because now we can do it by grouping. What that means is, just take a look at the first two terms, and you see that we have x and x in common, so we can factor out an x. And then this divided by x, we have 3x. Minus 4x divided by x, we have minus 4. And then now look at the last two terms. Cannot really factor out anything, right? But technically, we can say that's plus 1. And then this right here pretty much stays 3x minus 4. Now, we notice that 3x minus 4, they are in common, so we can factor that out. Just put that down one time though. So this and that, factor it out. And then we have x plus 1 left. Just like that. 5x squared plus 7x minus 6. There's no common factor, and this right here is a 5, not 1. So go ahead, multiply the 5 and negative 6. That will be negative 30. And we need to think about two numbers, multiply to be negative 30, and together we add up to be 7. We can try 10 and 3. And one of them has to be negative. We need this to be negative. See, together we do end up with positive 7. So this right here, 5x squared stays. But then for the plus 7x, we write that as minus 3x and then plus 10x. Here's a small tip. Whenever you have a negative and a positive, always write down a negative first. It's easier. So that this part right here, you should just factor out positive later on. And then continue, we have the minus 6. Now let's do it by grouping again. This and that, we can factor out an x. 5x squared divided by x, we have 5x left. Minus 3x, factor out the x, we have minus 3. Now you see right here, we put down the plus 10x, right? So when you factor this, bring down the plus. 10 and 6, we can factor out a 2. So factor out a 2. 10x divided by 2 is 5x. Minus 6 divided by 2 is minus 3. This and that, they are the same. So we can factor that out. And then x plus 2. Done. Can I factor any common factor? And this is a 4, right? So go ahead. 4 times 15, that will be 60. And then break it down. What times 4 give us 16? Together, they add up to be negative 16. 10 and 6, but both of them have to be negative. So to write down negative 6, negative 10. When we add them, we do get negative 16. So we will have 4x squared. For this, both of them are negative, so it doesn't matter anymore. Just write down negative 6x, and then minus 10x, and then plus 15. Now do this by grouping. We see that this and that, 4 and 6, we can factor out 2. X squared and x to the first power, we can factor on x. 4x squared divided by 2x, 4 divided by 2 is 2. X squared divided by x is x. Negative 6x divided by 2x. Negative 6 divided by 2 is negative 3. And the x is out already. Now be careful with the last two terms right here. Notice this right here is a negative. So you really have to write down the negative right here. And then focus on the 10 and 15. We can factor out a 5. But because we put down a negative here, so it's like we are factoring a negative 5. So we have to look at this as negative 10x divided by negative 5. Negative 10 divided by negative 5 is 2, and then we have the x right here. Positive 15 divided by negative 5 is negative 3. This is the correct way to do it. This and that, they are the same. So you can factor that out. 2x minus 3, and then we have that 2x minus 5. Now for number 18, we see that we have 4 terms. So we'll do this by grouping. This and that, this and that. So here, x cubed plus 2x squared, we can factor out just the x squared. X cubed divided by x squared, we get x. And then plus 2x squared divided by x squared, right, just the plus 2. Here we have a plus, so make sure you just write down a plus. 5 and 10, we can factor out 5. 5x divided by 5 is x. Plus 10 divided by 5 is plus 2. Next, this and that, we can factor that out. So x plus 2. And then here we have x squared plus 5. Notice this right here is not factorable, so we just leave it like this. And then we are done. Number 19, we have 4 terms, so let's do this by grouping. First 2 terms, and then the last 2 terms. 4 and 28, we can factor out 4. X to the third power, x to the second power, we can factor out x to the second power. 4x to the third power divided by this, 4 divided by 4 is 1. X to the third power divided by x to the second, we have x to the first. Plus 28 divided by 4 is 7. X squared is 1. Here we have a minus, so make sure you write that down right away. 9 and 63, we can factor out a 9. And then negative 9x divided by negative 9, we have positive x. Negative 63 divided by negative 9, we have positive 7. Negative divided by negative gives us positive. This and that, they are the same. So we have x plus 7, or x squared minus 9. And notice this right here is a difference of 2 squares. So we can actually factor this as well. Look at this as something square minus something else square, right? We need 2x and 3. So this right here, we still have the x plus 7. And then for this, we will have 2x minus 3 times 2x plus 3. And that will do it. Number 20, we have 4 terms, so let's do it by grouping. First 2 terms, last 2 terms. Here, 2 and 8, we can factor out 2. And then x and x, we can factor that out. And then, you see that 2xy, we took out the 2x, so we just have the y left. And then just do negative 8 divided by 2 is negative 4. X and X is out, yeah? So that's what you have. Now this is a plus. 3 and 12, we can factor out 3. And then 3y divided by 3 is y. Negative 12 divided by 3 is minus 4. So finally, this and that are the same, so we can just factor that out, and then we have 2x plus